Hello friends, so today's video is the sun square that matches the moon square, so you can make yourself a lovely matching celestial piece. For this one I'm using a 5mm hook and double knit yarn. Let's get started. So to start with, we're going to make a magic ring. Now we're going to chain 2, now we're going to put 11 double crochets US terms into the magic ring, and if we count our chain that makes 12 stitches total. 1, 2, 3. So I shall continue around until I have 12 total stitches and come back to you when I get to the end. So I have 12 stitches total. I'm going to tighten my magic ring and slip stitch into the first chain. If I can get it in there, come on. There we are. Okay, so now we are going to chain 2, and we're going to double crochet into that same space, and then we're going to double crochet twice into each stitch around, so we will end up with 24 stitches total. So really simply just double crochet into each one all the way around, and I shall get back to you when I made it to the end. Okay, so I've made it to the end of the round. I'm going to slip stitch in between these first 2 stitches, and I'm going to chain 2. Working in the same space in between these 2 stitches, I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop and just go through half the stitch, so just the first 2, leaving 2 on the hook, yarn over, popping it through again in the same space, pull through the first 2, you now have 3 on your hook, pull through all 3 and chain 2. Working into the next space where you have your 2 double crochets, you're working in between those, yarn over, pull through just the first 2, yarn over, pull through just the first 2, yarn over, pull through the first 2, so you now have 4 on your hook, pull through all 4 and chain 2. So the first one we had 3 on our hook, that's because we started with a chain and not a real stitch, and from now on we will have 4 loops on our hook to pull through. So we're going to skip the next space and go into the space where the 2 double crochets are going into there, yarn over, pull through the first 2, 2 on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2, 3 on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2, 4 on the hook, pull through all 4 and chain 2. So we're going to continue that around until we make it to here, and you should have 12 of these groups of 3. So I've completed my 12th group of 3, I have chained 2, and now I'm going to do what's called a standing stitch into the top of my first one. So putting your hook through the top of that little cluster, pull through, you have 2 on your hook, pull through both, put your hook through the first loop of the stitch you just created and pull through. Now normally to complete this stitch we would then pull through both again, but we are now doing a colour change, so I'm going to pull through to complete the stitch with my other colour. and that completes the stitch. And continuing working with the blue, we make sure that we carry along the yellow as we go. I'm also going to just go over my tail end just to hold it secure. We're going to do 3 double crochets into this chain space. What we're actually going to do, if I do 2, is 2.5 stitches, making sure that our yellow is underneath all the stitches. So that's 2.5. And to complete this stitch, we're going to change to the yellow. Carrying the blue underneath, we're going to yarn over and going into the top of the stitch for our cluster. I'm going to just do half a stitch in the yellow, drop the yellow, complete the stitch in the blue. Carrying the yellow across, we're going to do 2.5 double crochets into there. And a half, because we're going to drop the blue and complete the stitch in the yellow. Now we're doing the yellow into the top of the cluster, just half a stitch, drop the yellow, complete the stitch in the blue. 1, 2, and a half, complete the stitch in the yellow, yarn over into the top of there, only half a stitch, complete the stitch in the blue. This is great practice for changing colours because you have to do it so often. You get used to the method. So we're going to do 2.5 in the blue, there's the half, drop the blue, complete the stitch in the yellow, do half a stitch, complete the stitch in the blue. So continue around and I shall come back to you when I get to here. So I've made it round to my last stitch. I've completed the last stitch in the blue, and going into the first stitch of the yellow, I'm going to do a single crochet. That just completes that row, and you can snip the end of your yellow because we're finished with the yellow. So I shall weave in my ends in a moment. Now we're going to start turning this circle into a square. So now we've done our single stitch, we're going to turn this circle into a square. So to do that, in the next 2 stitches along, we're going to put a half double. 1, 2. The next 2 stitches are doubles. 1, 2. The next stitch along is a treble, so that's where we yarn over twice. And now we've made it to our corner, so this is going to be 2 trebles in the same space. 1, 2. We're going to chain 2, creating our corner space, and then we're going to put 2 more trebles into the same space again, so that's 4 stitches all into that same space, and that creates our corner. So next stitch along is a treble, and we have 2 doubles, 1, 2, followed by 2 half doubles, single. Now we're going back up again, so it's 2 half doubles, 2 doubles, a treble, and now we're at our next corner, so it's 2 trebles into the same space, chain 2, and 2 trebles into the same space again. Next stitch along as a treble, now we have 2 doubles, 1, 2, 2 half doubles, 1, 2, and a single. So we're going to repeat this all the way around, and I shall get back to you when we get back to here. So I've done my last half double stitch, and I'm just going to single crochet, I'm going to slip stitch into the last stitch there. Now for our final round, very simple, we're just going to single crochet all the way around until we get to our corner. Once we're in our corner, we're going to single crochet 3 into the same chain space, 2, 3, and now making sure we go into the very first stitch here, I'm going to do a single crochet there, and then continue all the way around. So we're going to do that for all 4 sides. I shall come back to you once I have finished the square. So I've made it round to my last stitch. I'm just going to do a slip stitch into there. Now we can cut and weave in our ends. So here we have our final square. You may want to block it just to square it off a bit, but it's come out really nicely. I've enjoyed making these. I've not made them before, so I've only just learnt how to do them, and I think they're lovely and they fit perfectly with the little moons. So I'm now going to think up a project to use these for, and I will probably film that for you. So yeah, I hope you enjoy making these. The moon video is linked below, and I shall see you again soon for another tutorial. Have a great day.